Hi, this is Professor Becker, and this is a video going over your syllabus for Organic Chemistry 1. Alright, let's start at the top. Obviously, this is Valencia College, the East Campus, and you're in Organic Chemistry 1. We're going to meet on Mondays and Wednesdays from 1 to 2:15 in Building 1, Room 347. As I've already said, my name is Professor Becker. My office is right down the hall from our classroom, so it's in Building 1, Room 316. My email address is given, my office phone number, and now let's go down to office hours. So I've highlighted the on-site office hours, and on-site means I will be in my office at those times. So on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, I'll be in my office from 9 to 10. And on Thursday, I'll be in my office from 11 to 1. Preferred contact method. Although you can contact me several different ways, I would prefer to be contacted through Blackboard. I will reply within 24 hours of being contacted during the week. We've already mentioned it's Organic Chemistry 1. You can read the description. Let's go down to prerequisites. You have to have completed and passed General Chemistry 2. Let's go down to educational materials. This semester, I'm going to try using a website which has open access, so it's free, instead of a textbook. So you can see right here, this is the link to the online textbook that I want to use. If you don't feel comfortable with that and you want a hardcover textbook, we're using the Organic Chemistry 8th edition by McMurray that we sell in the bookstore. Under that, I highly suggest you get a large 3-ring lecture notebook to put all of your PowerPoint slides in. When you print the PowerPoint slides, I highly suggest that you do not print them in color, and I do suggest that you print 2 to 3 per page. Let's look at the assessment process. This semester we're going to have 3 hourly exams, each one 15% for a total of 45%. We're going to have pop quizzes almost daily, which will account for 10% of your grade. We're going to have a final exam, which will be comprehensive, and it is worth 15% of your grade. So if you notice, it's worth the same percentage as a regular exam. The laboratories that we're going to do and hand in are 25% of your grade, and the homework that you are going to hand in is 5% of your grade. The grading scheme you can see on the right is just the traditional A, B, C, D, and F. Let's scroll down. Under policies, let's look at attendance. If you miss the first wet lab, you will be withdrawn from class. If you are absent for 3 or more labs, you will be withdrawn from the class. Please make sure you come to lab on time, because 10 minutes after lab has started, I will lock the door and you will not be able to come in, and it will count as an absence. There are no makeups for anything. I have a 0 tolerance for cheating, which means if I can prove that you cheated, you will automatically fail the course. Extra credit. There is no extra credit this semester. And if you look under rounding, there'll be no rounding for your grades. What this means is that if you end up with an 89.9 at the end of the semester, you're going to get a B in the class. You can read the withdrawal policy, the students with disabilities. If you have accommodations, please get it to me as soon as possible. Academic honesty, expected student conduct. Personal electronic devices such as cell phones, laptops, and tablets are definitely allowed in class. Let's scroll down. These are our 5 learning outcomes for the semester. If you read through them right now, they may not make much sense to you. But my goal is by the end of the semester, you can read through them and you will fully understand them all. Alright, what everyone's been looking forward to, the schedule of classes in lab. So I've set it up by day. So in the first column we have the date, and the second column we have the activity, and the third column we have what will be due on that date. So let's take a look at August 28th. we're going to do Chapter 1, and nothing is due. On August 30th, we're going to do Chapter 2, and the chapter homework for Chapter 1 is due. Then on the 4th, we have no class, and so on. Let's skip down to September 25th, which is our first exam, which will cover Chapter 1 through 4. And your Chapter 4 homework is due on that day. After we go through Chapter 1 through 4, we sort of skip around. We'll go to Chapter 12 and do some spectroscopy, 13 more spectroscopy, back to 6, 7, and 8. So exam 2 will be Chapter 6 through 8 and 12 through 13. What I also want you to notice is that the day before, the lecture before we have an exam, is just a review for that exam. So on September 20th, we'll review for exam 1. On October 18th, we'll review for exam 2. I am not going to have anything prepared. You are going to have studied by then so that you bring questions and you ask me. Let's continue on. Again, on November 20th, we'll review for exam 3. Exam 3 will cover Chapter 5 and then 9 through 11. On the 22nd, due to Thanksgiving break, we have no class. When we come back, we'll have our exam 3. And then we have 2 days left open for review for our final exam. And if you'll notice, our final exam is going to be on December 6th, which is the week before final exams. So we will not have our final exam during final exam week. Disclaimer, of course, the schedule may have to be altered. If it has to be altered, I will message everyone through Blackboard. Another thing I'd like to mention is that the homework for a chapter cannot be due until we've finished that chapter. So let's take a look at when Chapter 1 is due. Chapter 1 is due on August 30th. If we do not finish Chapter 1 on August 28th, then it cannot be due on August 30th. I'm not going to send an email, but you need to know that everything will be pushed back. If we haven't finished a chapter yet, the homework cannot be due. Important dates. The drop refund deadline is given. The withdrawal deadline, which is very important, is November 10th, 2017. After that, I will not withdraw you except for attendance. Let's talk about lab. We'll be meeting for lab on Wednesdays from 10 to 12:45 in Building 1, Room 322B. Our lab manual is the Small Scale Synthesis by Zanger and McKee. It is a custom East Campus edition, so you do have to get it at the East Campus bookstore. The other thing that you also need is a carbonless copy lab notebook. You can get that from our bookstore, or you can get it online. It's pretty cheap on Amazon. The third thing you need is a scientific calculator. There won't be many calculations in organic chemistry, but we do always calculate percent error and percent yield in lab. Attendance policy, which I've already mentioned. If you miss the first wet lab, which is the week of September 11th, you will be withdrawn from the class. Remember that there are no makeup labs, and that I will lock the door 10 minutes after lab is started. If you miss 3 or more labs, you will be withdrawn from the course. Under grading policy, the labs that you do and hand in account for the whole 25%. There is no lab practical. Let's look at course assignments. Every time we have lab, there's a pre-lab assignment, and it's not like general chemistry where there's pre-lab questions. The pre-lab assignment must be completed, and it is done in your carbonless copy notebook. I will talk about it in a couple minutes, what's included. The important thing here is, though, if the pre-lab is not totally complete, you will have to leave lab and it will count for 0. After we get to lab, I will walk around and I will check everyone's pre-lab. If it's complete, not necessarily accurate, but if it's complete, I will sign it and you get to stay. If it is not complete, you will have to leave and it will count for 0. Normally, you're going to hand in a lab the next lab. If we have a holiday or a day off, then you may get more than 1 week to finish the lab. Let's take a look at our tentative schedule. So the first time we meet, we'll just be talking about safety. And then if you notice, on the week of September 4th when we meet, we're actually going to be having lecture. I'm going to lecture on Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. So the week of September 11th will be our first wet lab, which is an introduction to organic chemistry lab, which is a lab that you have to print out from Blackboard. After that, we're going to go through Lab 5A, B, and D. Then if you look at the week of October 9th, again, we'll be lecturing during lab. On October 16th, the week of October 16th, we're going to be doing another handout lab, which is IR, GC, and TLC, and it will count for 3 separate lab grades. Then we're going to do Lab 5C, 5E. The week of November 6th, I'll be lecturing again during lab. Then we're going to go to Lab 8C. Then we will not have lab because of Thanksgiving break. And then we will finish up with the preparation of T-amyl chloride. If we miss a lab due to the school being closed for some unforeseen reason, or if I'm ill, we will just not do that lab. We will pretend like it never happened. Let's go down to PreLab. So this is a page talking about what the PreLab is. So first of all, the PreLab has to be completed before you get to lab, and it has to be written in your carbonless copy lab notebook. So this is where it starts. When you start, and you start with the purpose, the equations, and materials, I want you to use the whole width of the paper in your notebook. That means all the way across. So the first thing you're going to do is put your name and your partner's name at the top. Then you're going to write the word purpose and write the purpose. You do not have to copy it word for word from the lab manual. It can be short. The next thing are equations. Equations could be chemical reactions, chemical mechanisms, or mathematical equations. The third thing are materials. So for apparatus, please draw and label any piece of equipment that is new to you. Please do not draw and label a test tube or a beaker. Everyone has used those. It's only for equipment that is new. The next thing under materials is chemicals. All chemicals that we make or use, you have to write the chemical name, the chemical formula, the chemical structure, the molar mass, the dangers and precautions. Those are mandatory. And then I have the star here. These are things that I may need extra for that lab. So the boiling point, the melting point, the density, and I will be specific in which you need. After you're done with the materials, you're going to write the word procedure, and after that you're going to write the directions for the lab. Now I want you to use only half the width of the paper. So on the left-hand side are going to be the directions of how you're going to actually accomplish the lab, and you're going to leave the right hand blank for any observations that occur. When you're writing in your lab notebook, you should be writing in pen, and if you make a mistake, please just put a single line through it. Here are some lab facts. Lab usually brings students' grades down. Each lab is 2.3% of your overall grade in this class. If you want to, before the due date, you can come to my office and I'll look over your post-lab questions and conclusions, and I'll give you hints, and I'll tell you if it's wrong. I will not give you the right answer, but I will lead you in the right direction. Organic lab will usually take the entire class period. Remember that if you are 10 minutes or more late, you will not be allowed in lab. If you're absent for a lab, you can still hand in the previous lab, just not the one you missed. You should hand in the previous lab as soon as possible. If you do not get along with your lab partner, please come and let me know, and I will change your lab partner. A large proportion of your grade in organic chemistry is based on your results, so your technique definitely matters. Please only write the answers to your post-lab questions. I know what the questions are. Make sure to number your post-lab questions and make sure to number your conclusions just as I specify in your lab notes. Please make sure that the conclusion goes last. Please make sure that you put all the math in your conclusion. If students are going to get kicked out for not having their pre-lab totally completed, it's usually because they forget the dangers and precautions for the chemicals or the mathematical and chemical equations. So where do you get a list of chemicals for each lab? Go to Blackboard, click on Labs, click on Lab Notes, and click that specific lab. And there will be a list of all the chemicals. So how do you know which mathematical equations will be used? You're going to have to read through the lab, read through the post-lab questions and the conclusions, and see which equations we actually use. How will you know what chemical reactions we're going to be using? They're typically on the first page of the lab. How will you know whether to write the mechanism for the reaction or just the straight reaction? Go to Blackboard, click Labs, click Lab Notes, and click that specific lab, and the directions will be there for you. So another question is, do you have to do all of the post-lab questions in the lab manual? And how will you know? Again, you're just going to go to the Blackboard, Labs, Lab Notes, and click that specific lab, and it's going to tell you. Same thing for your conclusion. My last question is, do you remember how to calculate the theoretical yield and the percent yield? So when you calculate the percent yield in organic lab, the majority of the points are based on if you do the calculation right, not what your percent yield is, because organic reactions are notorious for poor yields. So essentially, I'm looking for 50% or higher percent yield. On the last page of the syllabus is an example, step by step, of how you can calculate the theoretical yield and the percent yield. Thank you.